The most brutally humiliating, ego-shattering public execution in modern sports history just detonated on national television, leaving 20,000 screaming fans in pure disbelief as Angel Reese suffered a complete, unhinged mental breakdown. With less than 3 seconds on the game clock and the entire arena holding its breath, Reese found herself wide open under the rim for a brain-dead, uncontested 2-foot layup that would have sealed a massive victory over her fiercest mortal enemy. In a moment of unthinkable, catastrophic choking, Reese elevated, panicked, and bricked the easiest shot of her entire career off the front iron as the final buzzer sounded, handing away the win in total humiliation. Before Reese could even process the crushing agony of her failure, Caitlin Clark stopped dead at center court, pointed directly at Reese's face, and burst into uncontrollable, theatrical, merciless laughter, shaking her head in utter disbelief before millions of viewers. Enraged by the brutal public mockery, Reese went completely nuts, slamming the basketball into the hardwood with terrifying rage, charging at officials, and physically violently fighting through her own frantic teammates to attack Clark in an explosive, unprecedented brawl. To fully comprehend the sheer psychological carnage of this catastrophic breakdown, we must trace the deeply toxic, resentment-fueled rivalry that has poisoned the air between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese since their legendary collegiate showdowns. Ever since Reese famously stalked and taunted Clark during the NCAA championship game, waving her hand across her face in a mocking gesture, relentless Cold War has raged across television networks, sports bars, and locker rooms nationwide. Reese built an entire personal brand around being Clark's ultimate antagonist, leveraging that heated friction to command massive national media attention, lucrative corporate endorsements, and a cult-like following that celebrated her aggressive, unapologetic hostility. Mainstream sports networks eagerly played along, building a lucrative protection racket around Reese, comparing her glass-cleaning ability to NBA icons like Dennis Rodman while deliberately burying her glaring, atrocious offensive limitations under a mountain of glossy promotional campaigns. Every forced television debate and hyped-up matchup served as a multi-million-dollar business model, but as Clark transitioned into the WNBA, the stark talent gap began tearing away at Reese's fragile, heavily protected reputation. While Clark methodically picked defenses apart with surgical logo three-pointers and jaw-dropping transition assists, Reese's game remained painfully reliant on raw physicality, aggressive elbows, and unrefined putback attempts under the basket. Behind closed doors, the mounting media scrutiny created a suffocating pressure cooker inside Reese's inner circle, as critics openly questioned whether she was a legitimate superstar or merely a master marketer leeching off Clark's historic global popularity. Every missed bunny, clunky post move, and abysmal shooting percentage was dissected by millions online, fueling a deep-seated jealousy that simmered just beneath the surface during every single pre-game warm-up. Reese came into this high-stakes contest consumed by an overwhelming, desperate need to assert total dominance, constantly jawing at the referees, throwing physical body checks, and screaming toward the opposing bench after every contested rebound. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was waging a desperate war for relevance, determined to prove that her raw toughness could overpower Clark's pure, transcendent basketball artistry on the game's biggest stage. Meanwhile, Clark played with a cold, terrifying serenity, ignoring Reese's constant verbal jabs and physical intimidation tactics, waiting patiently for the exact moment to strike a lethal blow. The stage was set for a monumental collision of egos, with thousands of hostile fans screaming in the stands and national television cameras tracking every single micro-expression between the two bitter rivals. Neither athlete was willing to yield an inch, but deep down, insiders knew that one single mistake under the blinding arena lights could trigger an irreversible, career-shattering psychological explosion. As the fourth quarter clock wound down to its final agonizing seconds, the suffocating tension inside the arena reached an absolute boiling point, waiting for the spark that would blow this toxic feud wide open. With less than 15 agonizing seconds remaining on the game clock and the score deadlocked in high-stakes drama, the arena descended into absolute, deafening pandemonium. The initial play call completely broke down under suffocating pressure, forcing a chaotic, scrambling sequence where the ball somehow skipped past 3 defenders and landed directly into the wide-open hands of Angel Reese, standing barely 2 feet from the rim. It was the ultimate dream scenario every athlete prays for: no defender in sight, the clock expiring, and the entire sports world watching in breathless anticipation. All Reese had to do was execute the most basic, elementary play in basketball history, a simple, uncontested layup to claim eternal glory over her mortal enemy. Instead, total psychological paralysis struck. Reese elevated frantically, rushed her release in pure panic, and watched in utter horror as the ball clanked off the front iron, rolled awkwardly across the backboard, and bounced helplessly into the hands of the defense as the final buzzer sounded. The arena let out an involuntary, collective gasp before exploding into deafening, mocking laughter that echoed through the rafters like a thunderclap. Standing at center court, Caitlin Clark didn't just celebrate. She stopped dead in her tracks, pointed her finger directly at Reese's face, bent her knees, and burst into hysterical, uncontrollable, theatrical laughter, mercilessly ridiculing the blown game winner on live national television. The public humiliation instantly shattered Reese's mental state. Her eyes widened with pure, demonic fury as the emotional dam broke completely. Reese slammed the basketball into the hardwood with terrifying force, sending it bouncing 20 rows deep into the lower bowl seats, before charging like a madwoman directly toward the referee crew, screaming unprintable obscenities at the top of her lungs. When her own panicked teammates scrambled to physically restrain her, Reese went completely berserk, violently ripping out of their grip, clawing through her own coaching staff, and sprinting full speed toward the opposing bench, where Clark was still openly mocking her with her teammates. Then came the first catastrophic twist that turned a heated basketball game into an absolute crime scene. As Reese closed the distance, she bypassed Clark and lunged directly at Indiana's coaching staff, screaming that the game had been illegally rigged by league officials who secretly ordered refs to ignore fouls against her all night. Courtside microphones picked up Reese, hysterically screeching that high-ranking WNBA executives had promised her before tip-off that the game's final calls would favor her team to protect her media narrative against Clark. The shocking, live broadcast confession sent an icy wave of terror through the arena as players, coaches, and broadcast producers realized that in her unhinged rage, Angel Reese had just accidentally exposed a massive, secret officiating arrangement on live international television. Reese's unhinged live mic confession triggered immediate, absolute anarchy inside the building as security personnel and local law enforcement rushed the floor to prevent a full-scale physical riot. While frantic broadcast directors cut the audio feed to suppress the scandal, the arena's giant video board continued showing the live court footage, capturing Reese screaming hysterically as she was dragged down the tunnel by 4 security guards. In the locker room hallways, the situation devolved into an utter disaster as Reese smashed water coolers, kicked through drywalls, and engaged in screaming, shouting matches with her own head coach and team management. Furious arena workers and tunnel witnesses reported hearing lockers slamming and glass shattering as Reese's uncontainable rage turned into a violent psychological breakdown that required medical staff to intervene. Meanwhile, inside the Indiana locker room, Caitlin Clark sat surrounded by her laughing teammates, completely unbothered by the chaos she had unleashed, coolly watching the fallout play out on social media feeds. Within minutes, the Great Choke and Clark's laughter became the top trending topics worldwide, amassing over 50 million impressions across X and TikTok as fans mercilessly edited the missed layup to comical circus music. Mainstream sports networks were forced to abandon their pre-scripted post-game coverage, completely abandoning their protective narratives to address the grotesque public meltdown that had permanently ruined Reese's reputation. Then, right as league officials attempted to issue a gag order to silence the media room, the second massive twist struck the sports world like a devastating artillery shell. A high-ranking producer inside the national television broadcast truck secretly leaked raw, unedited courtside audio files directly to independent sports journalists online. The audio captured the precise exchange right before Reese's catastrophic missed layup, exposing that Caitlin Clark hadn't just laughed after the play. She had actively broken Reese's mind before the ball even left her hands. As Reese caught the pass wide open under the rim, Clark had shouted a cold-blooded, psychologically lethal six-word phrase directly into her ear. "You know you're gonna miss this." The raw audio proved that Clark's psychological warfare was so precise, so calculated, and so devastatingly effective that it forced Reese into a state of blind panic, causing her to choke the easiest 2 points of her life. Even more damning, the leaked tape caught a senior referee whispering to Reese immediately after the miss, warning her to stay quiet because the league could no longer cover up her offensive incompetence on live television. The explosive leak completely blew away any lingering excuses of fatigue or bad luck, revealing to the entire world that Caitlin Clark had systematically dismantled, humiliated, and broken Angel Reese both physically and mentally on the biggest stage in basketball history. The viral explosion of the leaked courtside audio detonated an absolute nuclear nightmare across the global sports media landscape, turning Angel Reese into an international laughingstock overnight. Every major television network, sports podcast, and digital media platform completely suspended their scheduled programming to air nonstop, frame-by-frame breakdowns of the catastrophic missed layup and the brutal, merciless psychological execution that followed. Millions of brutal memes, mocking video edits set to circus music, and ruthless reaction clips flooded TikTok, X, and Instagram, amassing hundreds of millions of views as the internet tore Reese's protected reputation to absolute shreds. Die-hard fanbases clashed in ferocious, unhinged flame wars across social media, with millions declaring that Caitlin Clark had officially ended the debate forever by mentally breaking her fiercest rival on live television. Corporate sponsors and high-end brand partners immediately hit the panic button, desperately attempting to distance their marketing campaigns from Reese as her public image plummeted into toxic, unrecoverable territory. Inside the team's team hotel, the emotional fallout was suffocatingly dark, heavy with pure embarrassment, deep shame, and uncontainable psychological trauma. Angel Reese completely locked herself inside her private suite, refusing to open the door for teammates, coaches, or team doctors, while her representatives issued panicked statements claiming she was battling severe physical exhaustion. Her refusal to face reporters at the mandatory post-game press conference triggered immediate, heavy fines from the WNBA, but the financial penalty was nothing compared to the permanent destruction of her athletic pride. Teammates who had spent months publicly defending Reese's aggressive play style now felt utterly betrayed, deeply resentful that her unhinged court behavior and disastrous choke had dragged the entire franchise into global infamy. Inside the Indiana Fever locker room, the atmosphere was wildly electric, dripping with supreme confidence as Caitlin Clark's teammates openly celebrated the total strategic victory over their bitter rivals. When reporters pressed Clark about her relentless, mocking laughter, she offered no apology whatsoever, calmly stating with a cold, terrifying smile that on the court, respect is earned through clutch performance, not artificial media hype. Meanwhile, at league headquarters, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was forced to convene an emergency, closed-door crisis summit with team owners and board executives to manage the massive reputational damage. Top league investors were utterly terrified that the undeniable proof of Clark's total psychological dominance and Reese's catastrophic mental collapse would permanently ruin the competitive credibility of the WNBA's biggest promotional storyline. Rival players across the league watched the carnage in stunned silence, realizing that the era of polite competition was officially dead and buried. Angel Reese wasn't just nursing an agonizing loss. She was completely trapped inside a psychological nightmare of her own making, haunted by the echoing sound of 20,000 screaming fans and Caitlin Clark's cold, mocking laughter ringing endlessly in her ears. Just as the WNBA crisis management team prepared an emergency press release to officially suspend Angel Reese for her violent, unhinged court outburst, an encrypted digital dossier leaked directly to global media outlets, dropping the ultimate nuclear cliffhanger. The classified documents contained confidential internal communications straight from high-ranking league officials, revealing that the entire rivalry narrative between Clark and Reese had been heavily manipulated from the top down to drive multi-billion-dollar television rights negotiations. However, The final document inside the leaked dossier dropped a jaw-dropping bombshell that turned the entire sports universe completely upside down. Angel Reese's legal team had quietly filed a massive billion-dollar federal lawsuit against the WNBA board immediately following her hallway breakdown. The explosive legal filing claimed that league executives and officiating coordinators had actively conspired to allow Clark to engage in targeted psychological harassment on the floor to intentionally break Reese's mental state for viral broadcast ratings. Even more shocking, the lawsuit contained a covert clause threatening to release raw, unedited locker room video footage from the night of the incident. Footage that allegedly catches high-ranking league representatives offering Reese direct financial kickbacks under the table to intentionally play up her villain persona. The entire basketball world stood completely paralyzed in sheer, unadulterated shock as the terrifying reality slammed home. Reese's catastrophic missed layup wasn't just a mental choke, but the triggering event of a massive legal war that could expose systemic corruption at the highest levels of professional sports. Inside the Indiana locker room, Caitlin Clark sat in stunned silence alongside her teammates, watching the breaking legal news scroll across national sports channels in utter disbelief. If Reese's legal team follows through and releases the classified locker room tapes during the upcoming federal injunction hearing, multiple top executives, officiating supervisors, and corporate sponsors face immediate, career-ending exposure and permanent blacklisting. Furthermore, the legal filing explicitly demands an immediate, league-wide injunction that would freeze all upcoming WNBA postseason games, effectively shutting down the entire professional season indefinitely until a full federal investigation is completed. As the countdown clock ticks toward an emergency live press conference where Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and Caitlin Clark are scheduled to address the global media, millions of terrified fans and desperate executives hold their breath in complete silence. The entire future of women's basketball hangs by a razor-thin thread, waiting for the single court decision that will either completely expose the darkest secrets of the league or burn the entire WNBA to the ground forever. This is without a doubt the most explosive, mind-blowing rivalry scandal in sports history. Now, we need to hear your absolute hottest takes down in the comments right now. Did Caitlin Clark completely cross the line by laughing directly in Angel Reese's face? Or did Reese bring this entire humiliation upon herself after missing the easiest layup of her life? Should the league suspend Reese for her unhinged meltdown, or is there a bigger corporate conspiracy at play? Drop your wildest theories below, because this nuclear feud is escalating by the second. If this dramatic, high-intensity breakdown kept you glued to your screen, smash that like button immediately. Most importantly, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all post notifications so you never miss a single jaw-dropping update as this historic scandal unfolds. Thank you for watching, stay locked in, and we will see you in the very next explosive video.